All right, Ben, the record is still intact, I guess. I don't know how long it's going to be intact, but the last team to win in Baton Rouge, 1999, and that was under your leadership, 41-7. It's been a long time since Auburn's won over there.
That's my last remaining piece of relevance with regards to Auburn folklore and Auburn history. So, but it is one that it is time. It is time to relinquish that throne, and hopefully, whether it be Bo or whether it be TJ, hopefully the boys in orange and blue this weekend can start a new trend.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of that game earlier in the week, and a lot of explosive plays in the game. I know Coach Harsin has talked about that in the last week or two. We don't have any right now. You had Ronnie Daniels and Markeith Cooper and a lot of those guys that could make a big play. How does Auburn get to that level this year?
Well, I think one of the main points is that there's got to be an established level of comfort between and trust between the quarterback and whomever those receivers are. And at this point, there's some uncertainty regarding the quarterback. There's obvious uncertainty surrounding the receiver position. And, they had a game of musical chairs against Georgia State and trying to identify a better rotation of receivers to put the guys in the best position to be successful. And that is firsthand. That's first and foremost. They've got to figure out who that guy is in a meaningful game. And, you can only find out so much in practice. It's when the lights come on and who understands their level of importance, who understands their role within the offense. And I was very fortunate and had guys that knew their role, guys that knew what was expected of them, whether it be Ronnie or Clifton Robinson and Markeith or Marcel Willis or all those guys, Jarris McIntyre, T-Rob. I mean, all of them knew at any point in time that they could be targeted and they could be someone that caught the ball. And I just don't know if the receivers that are in the meeting rooms right now have the level of understanding or the expectation that I better do my job, because there is a high likelihood that the ball is going to be coming to me. And there's been such inconsistency in the passing game for the last couple of years that these kids it's really hampered their development in that offensively, it's been so predetermined. It's been so one-sided that if Seth Williams isn't open, go make a play. Well, Mike Bobo's offense is read, play the position, and really play the art of being a quarterback and understanding where coverages take you and where defenses take you and things of that nature. So it's going to be a long road to hoe, but I definitely believe that the meeting room for the receivers, they have the talent. It's just a matter of somebody coming out of their shell and delivering consistently.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the change coaching staff this week? And how soon can that help the Auburn offense as far as the receivers, do you think?
I was surprised. Any coaching change 4 games into the season, whether it be a head coach, a coordinator, or even a position coach, to make a change at this point is a surprise, and is, you initially will think of it as a knee-jerk reaction. But again, I'm on board with Brian Harsin. I trust what he's doing. I believe in his mentality. I believe in his philosophy. And so therefore, I'm going to trust the decisions that he makes. He is not in it to make friends. He is full charging, straight ahead, and his number one goal is to win games for Auburn University. And I am a fan of that, first and foremost.
Yeah.
If in fact there is collateral damage to that, that's the world they live in. And unfortunately, it's you hate to see any man or woman lose their job, but they know these things going into it. I do, however, think that probably what aided to how expeditious this decision was made, or expeditiously this decision was made, was the fact that he had someone that he trusted so much in Kiesel that aided in that decision and aided in his comfort level of making it now, because he's been in the meeting rooms, he's been in the practices, the players are familiar with him, and Harsin is familiar with him, and I'm sure Mike Bobo is as well. So, you know, it's difficult to say how quickly or how long it will be until an impact is made, positively or negatively. But I think there'll be some very meticulous changes made. I think attention to detail, understanding splits and routes, and really driving it home to these young men as to what your role means to the effectiveness of the entire offense. To me, that is the number one most pivotal part of a coach, is explaining to these young men that the reason that I harp on you about your route being a 17-yard comeback, it's not 16, it's not 18, and it's not a 16-yard curl or whatever. You do exactly what I tell you to, because the other 11 men on the field, their process or their play is predicated off of yours. The success all works its way together. And I don't know that was being driven home to them or has been over the last couple of years. I can remember like it was yesterday. Ronnie Daniels, Reggie Worthy, Jarris McIntyre, Clifton Robinson, Markeith Cooper, Marcel Willis, all those guys. Greg Knox was the receivers coach at the time. I don't know how much they liked Greg I don't know that they were all buddies, and, these are before the days of TikTok, but I don't know if they were hanging out. But I will guarantee you one thing: their splits were right. Their routes were right. Our personnel was always accurate. Their formations were always right. I never had to question whether or not a guy was in the right place. It was not something that stuck in the back of my mind when it came to my receivers that were on the field. I knew and trusted in them that they were going to be in the right place. Now, there's the human aspect of being able to catch the ball when I throw it to them, or me missing them on an open route. But when it came down to being in the right place at the right time, understanding their role within the offense, never a doubt. And I think that's probably where Coach Harsin is trying to get to, that it's secondhand knowledge for these young men, that they understand their role, they understand where they come into play, and all of that part is an automatic assumption that it's done, and you just have to go out and play ball and catch it.
Right. And Harsin, I think, kind of hinted at that after the Penn State game, that Bo Nix shouldn't have to tell everybody where to line up. I think that was part of the problem. Talk to me a little bit about Baton Rouge Tiger Stadium. Bo handled the noise, I think, and the atmosphere pretty good at Penn State. What is it like there? Is it any different from any other place you play? Or we hear some wild stories about Tiger Stadium, but what do you have to do to handle it there?
No, it is far and away different than any other place you'll play. It was always my favorite road game. I love Death Valley. Now, granted, we did not lose there as a player, so that's partly, part of the reason why I like it, and part of the reason probably why I like Athens as well. But the fans are passionate. They love LSU football. They despise the visitors. You're the heel when you come into that place. It's a large stadium. The colors are always vibrant, and not to mention they're always good when you go play them. And the other portion of it is a night game in Death Valley is like nothing else you will ever experience. As a player, as a fan, I would encourage anybody to go watch a game there, whether you have a dog in the hunt or not. Go watch it and see it, because it is a spectacle that nothing rivals it. The way that you prepare for it, I don't know that you can, Doug. I don't know that you can get used to the level of consistent noise. There's, every stadium in the country, especially in the SEC, is going to have the roars of the crowd. It's going to have the ebbs and flows. LSU is a consistent, mind-numbing roar that never wavers. And then you put their student section, and you put in their band, and they're playing the music that they playing neck, and all the things that they do to get them all into it. And man, you almost, even as a visitor, you catch yourself, bobbing your head a little bit and enjoying it. And before you know it, you're down 21-0 and getting your brains beat in.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things, man. I remember when I was a true freshman in 1996, Damian Craig told me firsthand that the two most difficult places to play that we will visit or we will go to as a player will be LSU and Death Valley. And this was back when we would go to Legion Field. And that was just simply because it was the Iron Bowl, and they claim it was 50-50, but we all know that it wasn't. But those were the two, that rang true. Those were the two most difficult places that we ever visited during my tenure at Auburn. And I would put it up against anywhere. We 2 weeks ago went up to the Penn State game. While we are at the Penn State game, we happened to run in, make some buddies at a tailgate and whatnot. And they were super nice gentlemen. And their number one question, as they wanted to know, is how Penn State or how Beaver Stadium compared to our experiences in the SEC. And I told them, I was like, look, I've never been here before. Let's go to the game. After the game, I'll stop by and tell you what I think. Yeah. So we come out after the game, and I was like, man, it's loud. It is. It's loud, and has its obviously has its difficulties, but typical Southern fashion, I said, with all due respect, it is not any louder than LSU.
Yeah.
It's our kids, our players and players in the SEC, they face that on the road every week. And I think it just comes into play. It's just part of it. If you have early success on the road, you have the luxury of supposedly quietening the home crowd. If you leave the home crowd in it, you pay for that.
Yeah.
And they make your life a living hell for the next 60 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. Joe Burrow's comments were interesting to me about comparing Auburn to Penn State when they were on the road. But that seems to be the key, maybe to put that crowd to sleep early. Is that hard to do? I know it would be an awfully big setting for TJ if he were starting that game going back to LSU. Is that something he's ready to handle, you think?
I believe so. I think he is. He seems to be a kid that's in control of what he's doing. Based on how he carried himself, especially in that 99-yard drive to win the game against Georgia State, I was very impressed with his composure, with him, moving guys around, not panicking as the time wore down on the play clock, and then obviously making the play to essentially win the game. But even more so than that, there were a couple of third down conversions in that drive that he made some really key plays. A scramble here and there, made a clutch throw to Kobe Hudson on Auburn sidelines as they were driving towards midfield. The throw down the seam to Shanker that got reviewed and ultimately was what stood as a catch. I think the kid's ready, and I certainly think he's earned it. I think he's earned the ability and the right to start this game. Emotionally, it will be a huge test for him. He's going to have to kind of quiet the mechanism, quiet the white noise, and focus on control what he can control. And so long as he does that, I really have confidence in the fact that he can be successful. He is going to have to be reliant on the guys around him making plays that they are capable of, and they're going to have to do it consistently. And unfortunately, that's been something that's hampered Auburn a little bit throughout this season. But I just, I believe in what they're doing. I'm a huge believer in Mike Bobo and in his ability to teach the quarterbacks how to play the position. I think they've got the best running back duo in the country in Jarquez and Tank. And if they can maintain the consistency that they had, let's take Georgia State out, remove that whole entire game. If the team, this is a bold prediction, if the team that showed up in Happy Valley and played Penn State, if that team shows up in LSU, I think Auburn wins that game.
Yeah.
Because they ran the football consistently. The offensive line played their best game probably in 2 to 3 years. Quarterback play was above average. The receivers, you want more out of them, but the running game, what Auburn lives and dies on, the running game was at its best. Defensively, I think they've shored up some things, and I think they've got the ability to get after the Johnson kid and really put some pressure on him. And offensively, LSU's been limited as well. Other than Boutte, they don't have the litany of playmakers that they've had offensively over the last handful of years either.
Yeah, and last game against Mississippi State, they were kind of handed a couple turnovers and made a couple explosive plays, and that was the difference in the game. The Auburn running game, Penn State and Georgia State, didn't they try to do similar things to Auburn? And what was the difference? Why was one game successful and the other not so much?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. If you go back and look at the Georgia State game, they were so fast on their front seven, which really was a surprise to Auburn. They underestimated Georgia State, especially on the front portion of their defense. Georgia State was doing a lot of slanting. They were running a lot of games up front. It was difficult when you compound their speed and what they were doing up front, and they were coming off the edges. They were filling the edge with a safety in the alleys, which eliminated the RPO or the ability for the quarterback to run the ball in that instance. And it really put it was very damaging on Auburn's run game. And that's ultimately when Georgia State puts 8 guys in the box, that's inviting you to throw the football. That is telling you that we don't think you can throw.
Right.
Well, fortunately for Georgia State that day, Auburn couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And you go back and look at the Penn State game, Penn State was doing it more so. They weren't doing as much slanting and twists and games up front with their defensive front four. They were just hat on a hat. And I think that gave Auburn a little bit better consistency and better understanding of where their guys were, where they were going, and helped them in the blocking schematics as well. They didn't do as much with their safeties at Penn State. They did more with their outside linebackers. And regardless of what that Will and Sam linebacker do in the running game, he's not a surprise to anybody. He's not a surprise to the tackle. He's not a surprise to the guard, or if it's the fullback that's coming on an outside zone, he's not a surprise to him. That safety is coming from such a depth that unfortunately sometimes the quarterbacks may not, the lineman or the fullback may not see him. And he's someone that's quick of foot and can get around those blocks and read and react a little bit better than a linebacker, and in that, especially from a Penn State level of football.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be smoking a few cigars this weekend after the game, a late night game in Baton Rouge, and hope you enjoyed up there on the plains. And thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Happy to do it, Doug. Thanks for having me. War Eagle, buddy.
War Eagle.